Hi, I'm Andy from Roland. I'm going to show you through the Roland JDXA here. So, the JDXA is a new synth from Roland. It's both analog and digital. So you have an analog section on the top here, which you can have up to 8 oscillators stacked, and then also a digital section, which you can have 4 digital parts each with 3 partials on it. And I'll show you what I mean with those in a minute, just to kind of talk about the sort of potential for what this can do in terms of the power behind it. So taking this first patch that we were playing on here, which is the first patch on the synth when you turn it on, Heaven. This is what we call a crossover patch, so it uses both the analog and the digital section. So if I just take out the analog section for 1 second. That's what the digital section is doing, it's just got a kind of high, kind of ethereal style pad. Take out the digital. That's the analog part at the moment. The nice thing is that when you blend the two of them together, so you have the two of them sort of interacting with each other. If we take the cutoff down on the analog section, it allows the digital section to kind of shine through more. So you can make some really, really powerful sounds on it. Just to talk about kind of like the engine behind it and how that works. So I'm going to start with an initial patch on here. So this is just starting with a saw wave. And the analog part on here, we've got 4 separate analog parts, each with 2 oscillators. So for instance, if we just on analog part 1, I can have one saw wave, and then the second one here, the second saw wave. Turn them both up in the mixer. Tune one down. Kind of nice thick bass sound, but because we can stack 8 oscillators together, we can make some really, really powerful kind of sounds. So if we add in some more, so this is now 8 oscillators playing together. So you can see the potential of it, that you can make some really huge patches on it. What's really, really nice about it as well is that each of the analog parts has two LFOs per part. Most sort of polysynths, particularly analog ones, they usually have maybe 1, 2 LFOs that combine to everything, but actually on this one you can have an LFO per part, which is really, really clever. So a quick example of that is if we've got sort of pitch envelope going on here at a slower rate, and then the same thing going at a faster rate. Pretty extreme example, but it shows how both of them sort of interacting with each other. Some good sounds out of it, which is nice. In the digital section, just take it out of the analog on here. Oh, actually, one thing I should have mentioned actually with the analog, sorry, is if you press polystack mode, then that gives you 4-note polyphony. So you can play 4-note chords, just completely analog, which is ace. And depending on which part you choose, that's the oscillator configuration for those. So in the digital section, again we have 4 digital parts, each with 1 oscillator. So the oscillator 2 is now blanked out because it doesn't apply to this one. But we have 3 partials for each one. So we could sort of build the same kind of sound that we built with the other one. So you could have, say, an oscillator that's a saw wave, a second one which is also a saw wave, and build the same kind of bass patch. But what's really exciting about the digital section is the variations of the waveforms. So as well as your standard kind of analog waveforms, we have lots of PCM samples that we can use. I mean, to begin with, there are different types of saw wave and square wave that you can use. You get things like Roland super saw wave, which is really good for sort of pad sounds and sort of trance kind of tones. But then you've also got hundreds of PCM sort of samples that you can use to begin with. Anything from sort of FM kind of stuff, from like different wavetable simple things, even like electric piano kind of samples, and you can use these with any of the synth kind of patches in order to make your own kind of sounds, which is ace really. Other cool things that are very good about it is that you can combine the two sections together in quite interesting ways. So this is a bass sound that I've made on here based on sort of the Jupiter 8. This one I've got one sort of digital synth going, and I'm also combining it with an analog oscillator, which is quite cool. I'm just going to set a little arpeggio going. But what we've done on here is I've routed the digital section through the analog section. So if you go over to our mixer on here, we've got the two separate volume levels of our analog oscillators, but this third one, the auxiliary input, you can set that to be either sort of a white noise generator, pink noise generator, digital parts, or a microphone. So I've selected the digital part on here, and if you bring that up, what it does is it routes the digital signal through the analog filter. So now what we've got is we've got a digital sound that gets warmed up by going through the analog filter and stuff, which is great. The other cool thing about this one, it has a really powerful effect section. So over here you have reverb and delay that you can add to things, but then we also have two multi-effects, or track effects we call, which are you've got 29 different kind of effect sounds that you can use between them. So we've got, you just want to have a look at the screen as we kind of go through them. So we've got anything from just sort of isolators and bit crush effects, wahs, reverb, so you can stack delays, tape echoes, things like choruses. So for instance on this this particular patch that that was just playing before, so with a bit of chorus on it, we can really thicken it up. And then if we got some really powerful patches. You can also sync those to tempos. The whole thing will sync to an external clock if you wanted to. You've also got a vocoder input on here, which I'm not going to go through because I haven't got enough time really. There's a step sequencer, so if you wanted to, you could say record a particular phrase in and have that playing over, and you can do that for different parts as well. The other thing that's really powerful about the JDX8 is it gives you access to Roland's Axial sound library. So Roland have a website called Axial where they make loads of new patches for their synths on there, and you can download extra tones. So for instance, we've got Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran. He's made some signature patches for it as well. These are all free to download on here. So if you're a fan of his, you can get his signature sounds on here. We also have some stuff. This is an example from a combination of a Juno 60 and a Jupiter 8. It's an exceptionally powerful synth, and once you get into the hood of it, it really kind of gives you so much potential, and you can create basically any kind of synth sound that you'd want to get. Really versatile. You should come and check it out in store.